Howdy, cosmic friends and neighbors. Welcome to the Franki 411 podcast. I'm your host, Haleigh Overstone. And yes, you could call me Franki. What's the 411 on today's episode? Let's dive in and find out. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Franki 411 podcast. I am so glad to be joined today by my friend George Monty from the TrueLife podcast, founder of TrueLife Media, author, and all-around wonderful human being. Hello, George.
Hello, Haleigh. Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to be on the 411 podcast. I hope your day is going beautiful.
It's been magical thus far. It's so wonderful. I just got done with another podcast. I cannot believe sometimes the amount of wonderful human beings the universe brings to me. It's so very exciting. And I'm so happy to talk to you because I love your energy.
Well, thank you. I've always found that there's always something to be excited about. And if you just find a way to coax the beauty out of the ugly, your life will be amazing.
That is so 100% true. I could not agree with you more. So tell us about, because we didn't get to talk about you before, because we were on your podcast. We were doing the Let's Talk About Me. Now let's shift it around. How did you come to decide that you needed to start a podcast and talk about all of these wonderful, expansive topics and put more beautiful energy into the world?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think it stems from a long-term fascination with the world around us. I'm really curious, and I've always been curious, and I've always known there's more. And whether I was driving a truck or hanging out with my wife or my daughter or going surfing, like there was just this unsatiable quest for more. Like I wonder what that is. And maybe it starts with the question why. I always find myself asking like why. I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. And as I was going through life, I was doing pretty well. And I just got to a point in my life. I'm almost 50 now. And I got to a point in my life where I was 45 and I was just consuming so much media. And it was fascinating to me. I would listen to authors and audio. I used to crush audiobooks. I would do like 100 audiobooks a year. And
Woo.
and
Just running through them.
just running through them, And I thought to myself, man, I think I could do this. And it's so weird. The more you fill yourself up with stuff, the more stuff starts coming out. It's like you get input and then you get output.
That's
So I just
100% true. There's that balance, and then you start to get your own flavor with all these things because you spend so much time with it. And what's my outlet now, right?
yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah. Do you find the same thing? Like you fill yourself up and then it's like, okay, now I'm full. Now what do you do?
I 100% agree with that. I resonate with that so much that it's like I filled my head and my energy space
Yeah.
with all this stuff. Well, what do I create with it now? You bring it all in and then you got to breathe it all out, right? Like it's got to be a balance and a back and forth.
It's so true. It's almost like everything is necessary. All the trouble, all the trauma, all the stress, all these times where you're like, why me?
Mhm.
And you get to a point in your life like, oh, that's why. And all of a sudden, like this spark of creation is ignited inside of you, like a pilot light in a furnace. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden the heat and the warmth begins to radiate outwards in this act of creativity. So I think that's how it kind of started.
I love that so much. That is such a beautiful visual. And I'm such a visual person. So I thank you very much, friend. I love it.
Yeah.
Tell us then about why this, I guess, sort of concept area, right? So what is it about George's life that made him so very curious? Is there something, were you born a curious soul or did you have, what's the contrast that helped you decide that you needed to find the beauty in it, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that it stems from like loneliness and abandonment on some level. And I think that most people who find themselves searching for a creative outlet are in some ways trying to find a piece of the puzzle that makes them whole. And for me, like most kids in America, maybe not most kids, but my parents got divorced at an early age
Mm-hmm.
and I was a Gen Xer, so I was like a latchkey kid and I was always kind of alone. And I didn't mind it, like, I liked being alone, but I started looking for ways to keep myself occupied, and it was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try this thing out, I'm gonna try this thing out," and when you're alone, like, you have a lot of time to think, and so I began thinking about, what do I feel alone? What does it mean to feel alone? What does it mean? Is it abandoned alone, or is alone just finding ways to really love yourself? And so I think it stems from this idea of figuring out relationships. I think that's what the younger version of me grew into curiosity. It's like, okay, well, let me go investigate this.
I love that so much because everything you said is absolutely my childhood. Like,
Imagine that.
yeah, right? Like, this is why we connected and why we get along so
I don't.
well. Like, I was kind of that loner kid, you know, I was alone a lot, and you have that sort of, you can see both sides of the
Yeah,
coin, the abandonment negative side, and then the, okay, well, but there's this time to explore myself a little bit,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
finding creative outlets to do that. Like, I do resonate with that a lot. And I think probably a lot of people come from a space like that, right? And
yeah,
from what is this loneliness, and do I need to be so upset about it, or is there a purpose for it? Is there something that I need to be spending time looking at? It's definitely a conversation that is like, you can hear the things that are
yeah.
going on in my head sometimes, the way that you put it. It's like you're right in there with me.
I am. I think that a lot of us have, especially at a young age,
Mhm.
the idea of language has really sort of become a great friend of mine. It became the lens through which you see the world. When you understand the world is made of language, then you understand that abandonment is freedom. Just a different word for it. It's like, am I
Mhm.
abandoned or am I totally free to do whatever I want? Ooh, these people think they're abandoning me, but they're just giving me freedom. Ha 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 ha. I got them.
That's so great. But that's exactly what I love that about you. You've got that mindset of thinking about it in a positive way, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's such a brilliant way to view it. They think that they've left me all alone in the world, but look at what I get to do now. I'm going to go
Yeah.
make all kinds of trouble by myself. Nobody's
Yeah.
babysitting me. What kind of things can I get up to? All kinds of no good.
Mhm. I tricked them. They thought I'm harmless. They have no idea. I'm
Like,
smarter than all of them.
pull the wool over all their eyes. I love it. That's so,
Yeah.
so great. So, you have these wonderful little adventures you take then, meeting
Mm,
all these people that you get to
yeah,
talk to on your podcast, which is one of the things I love about this little
yeah.
game that we play. So, tell me then, has there been would you say what would you say has been a little bit of an evolution for you from where you started to where you are in terms of, maybe any of your mindsets, or are you sort of in a place that you didn't expect to be from when you started?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I wanna talk I want this message to go out to anybody who's podcasting, thinking about starting a podcast, or thinking about starting a podcast. It's
Yeah.
it's wonderful. You should do it, but don't do it. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't say that. You should definitely do it. When I started, I thought, "You know what? I really like doing this, is really fun, and I think I can turn it into this adventure where I'll make tons of money." And it might be possible, but that hasn't happened to me yet. Like, I don't really make hardly any money, but I love doing it. And I initially didn't know what to think, so I thought, "You know what? I'll probably just be Joe Rogan. Why not? I'll just be that guy."
Right
You
now,
know, like,
why
"Oh, that
not?
seems, like,
Isn't that who
easy.
we
I'll
all wanna
totally
be
do
when we
that."
start a podcast? We all
Yeah,
wanna be Joe Rogan. That's who it's,
yeah.
and
And
good
so
for him that he's that inspiration for so many
he
of
is.
us.
Yeah, he should be the next podfather. I think that,
I love it.
right? And, but I feel that maybe it takes that initial spark to get started. I know it kinda did for me, but what I have learned is that the podcast isn't so much a vehicle for money, it's more of a vehicle for relationships. But when you think about that, I've come to understand that relationships are the new currency because everybody I meet is
Yes.
more than money to me. Everybody I meet is a potential connection to introduce me to somebody else that could potentially change my life. And I've done that. Like I've met you, I've met so many cool people,
Yes.
and each connection leads to another connection. And it's just like, wow, this is so expanding on so many levels. I'm talking to so many people that I never would before. I'm getting all this free information. I'm learning so much. It's like,
Yes.
going to a class and meeting the professors that you're supposed to meet
Mhm.
forever. It's amazing.
I love that. I agree 100% with that because, that is, we all think, okay, this will be that's what because you have that Joe Rogan
Yeah,
image of like
sure.
the podfather who's got all the
Yeah,
money. But it really is, and I love that you say it that way because it's something I think about a lot, the idea of currency in general and
yep,
how our sort of attachment to currency and money is something that doesn't really serve us as a species anymore
yes,
in a lot of ways.
yep,
And so I love that you frame it that way, that the new currency is relationships
it
because
is.
it's so very true. And I've experienced the same thing. You meet one
Yeah,
cool person who knows another cool person and
yep,
another cool person, and then you start these other projects and you have these other opportunities to collaborate in these amazing ways
yeah,
to build new things and you do start to realize like, well, maybe I don't need to sustain myself with the money aspect of it quite so much. There's something else here that we can all put together and that we're all sort of building in a really wonderful way.
that is really well said. It's like on some level, we've started this fire and it's beginning to burn. Like for me
Mhm.
too, like I decided that I'm gonna leave the other George behind and just go with this new George. Like I started podcasting. I realized that even though I can't make money at it right now, I definitely will. I'm totally on pace to hit it, but I I realized I don't want to be the old version of me anymore. And podcasting has helped me understand who I am by changing the way I perceive myself and by allowing me to be part of relationships with people who see the world different. Like this has fundamentally changed my life. I'm I quit everything I was doing, walked away from like a job making 150,000 just to do this. I'm gonna probably leave Hawaii, move to California, start a whole new life there with the relationships that I am making now. It's changed the way I interact with my daughter, my wife, my friends. It's given me a whole new host of friends and an incredible new lens through which to see the world. And that is worth more than any money. Getting rid of an old mindset, burning away the illusions of what you thought you were so that you can become the person that you're supposed to be. Like that is what podcasting has done for me. And I highly recommend anybody who's thinking about making a change in their life, right now is the time to do it. There's never
Yes.
been a better time in life than to switch directions or pivot and find something that you love. Like the world will reward you if you take a chance. I promise.
I love that so much. That is such a message the universe needed to give me, and I'm sure so many people who are out there listening. And again, that's so what I love about what you do and what you talk about and the energy that you bring because it's it is an amazing evolution. I love the way that you put that to like let go of the old version
Yeah.
of you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's such a I think a lot of people are looking for that. The how do I let go of the old paradigms
Mm.
of how I was conditioned and who I was taught to believe I'm supposed to be, right? And it is true when you do this
Yeah.
podcasting and you meet more people and you have these conversations, it's like it's a way to like get in touch with the authentic you. You start to like peel away those
Yeah.
layers, right? And you start to this one next person has this revelation and this one
Yeah.
next person has that revelation and it just keeps unfolding until you finally are like, "Wow, I didn't think that I could be this person." And even though there's a part of you that knows that that's always who you were.
Yeah. It's there's something called the law of proximity. And that means that the law of proximity says that you'll probably find the person with whom you may marry in your work area, in your environment, in your surrounding area. Your friends will probably be the people in your area. But on some level, that can be very limiting. Not everybody has the resources to travel to Europe or travel to
Mhm.
South America and make these new connections. But now technology has given us a way to expand that circle of proximity. And now you're finding the others. Like there's no, I mean, it's not a coincidence that you and I have so many similarities in the way we think and the way we act
Mhm.
and the passions that we have. It's like it's magnetism on some level. Like you're drawing the people that really resonate with you to you. And now you can do it through the digital space. And that opens up the law of proximity to the people like your tribe. Like you can really find your tribe around the world now.
I love yes, 100,000% yes. That is I love the way that you put that because it's true.
Yeah,
We live in just the absolute perfect time space reality to be experiencing
yeah,
connectivity and really tapping into not just your authentic self, but your soul family. And it is that I love. I've never heard of that before, but see again, the reason you need a podcast because somebody knows something you don't. I've never heard of the law of proximity, but that is 100% true. And I come from South Dakota. I know what teeny little town and limited options on the ground looks like 100%. But it's absolutely true. Like, how else could I possibly have met so many wonderful people? Someone like you who
yeah,
is so very much like me and thinks so much like me. And you're in Hawaii, but we
yeah,
have all this technology that gives us the ability to connect in ways that we've never been able to connect before. And I'm so excited to see where we take it and what we can build because the community building element of this too
yeah,
is so valuable. I mean, you can't put a price on it.
yeah. It's amazing to think how much you can I wanna say influence people, but I'm not sure that's the right message. Like, I'm not even sure what influence means on some level. Like, I know I think that on I think part of me is still attached to the old idea of influence as far as changing people's minds, but I think the idea of influence is evolving as well. Like, maybe influence is becoming more like confluence. You know what I mean? Like you're working together and you're sort of it's
Yeah.
just sort of a contagious a wellspring of contagion of wellness or something along those lines. Like I think
So, like,
influence is changing.
I love that you're no, I love this. In my mind, it's sort of you're not trying to influence people or change people's minds necessarily.
Yeah.
You are trying to offer the gift of a new perspective. What anyone does with that
Yes.
gift is entirely up to them because that's what a gift is. I give it, do with it what you will, and that's what you're here for. And it's to just present those ideas, those new possibilities, and even if it's all you're doing is just planting the seed
Yeah.
in a pocket of human consciousness that there are other possibilities that exist outside of anything you've ever known or expected, maybe that's enough, right? Maybe it's enough that all you've done is plant the seed. You don't have to change a mind. You don't have to change a life. You don't. You've planted a seed for something new and different to grow, and that's what's so exciting, and that's what's amazing because you might not necessarily the beautiful know what beautiful flower is going to bloom from it.
Yeah. How many like think about there's probably tons of people that listen to my podcast or your podcast or Jeff's podcast that
Hmm.
you may not even know the seed that you've planted for them. I know that's happened to me. I've read so many books and listened to so many people talk, and I've taken one little kernel from their thoughts, and I've fed it, and it's grown, and so
Hmm.
it's just it's a beautiful thing, and I love the terminology you use, like planting a seed in the pocket of consciousness. Like it's poetic in so many ways.
It's how kind of how I see it though, and
Yeah,
sometimes I think of like, well, that's why I am where I am in the sort of conservative tiny nowhere that I'm currently at because maybe this place needs a little bit of this energy and like it's kind of like you said, it turns into confluence, right? And when
yeah,
you said that, I was imagining because this is something I like to use as a visual, the idea of mushrooms and mushroom
yes,
mycelium, like you see mushrooms pop out of the ground, but underneath that mushroom is roots that go miles and miles and miles out in every direction. And
yeah.
you never know when another fruit is going to pop up out of that awesome network that you're creating and growing and what magical things it might contain.
Yeah, it's like nature's supply chain on some level, and it's amazing,
I love that.
right? It's just
That's so great.
moving nutrients through the underground. In some level, like
I
we're
love
the
it.
underground, and we're just
Mhm.
moving information from me to you to Dubai to everywhere.
Yes, I love that. That's so good. What a wonderful visual. And it's so fun I mean, but it's like kind of the microcosm of the macrocosm thing, right? Like the
Yeah,
neurons in your brain look like Millennium Run, the construct of the universe, and
yeah,
that's what we're doing. We're just, here's my little neuron that I've created, the seed that I've planted, branches out, strings out, pops up new ones, pops up, and then you're creating a network of something new and something that can turn into what I don't know, some wonderful utopia that we will all take part in together.
I got a question for you. Like, and I was thinking about podcasting. There's something that happens to me, and I'm curious if it happens to you. It forces you to be in the act of creation. Like when you're podcasting, when you're doing a live show, when you're recording, you're not thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. You're not thinking about this thing that may have happened yesterday. You're like right in the moment.
I feel so much like that is something about podcasting that I absolutely need.
Yeah.
I really, really do. It's such a brilliant thing because I am someone who has a very active mind, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, like meditation, which is, we're all supposed to meditate, we're all supposed to sit and quiet our mind. And sometimes I just want to be like, man, I wish you knew how loud it was
Yeah.
up here on a regular basis. But it's true
Yeah.
when you're having these conversations, it's like now you're so engaged and you're so present and you're so in the now with it. And it takes you out of
Mhm.
all of the noise of all the external world that is all the things that are driving you
Yep.
crazy all the time. And I love, because we talked about this
Yeah.
before too on the last podcast, the idea of this wonderful present energy, this joyful energy that we sit in and enjoy it. And we're here for it in the podcast episode that we're recording, however you do it. And it's so exciting then to think, what wonderful things can the universe bring me now that I like birthed this energy that was so good? Like what can come from this? And it's so true. It's such a wonderful way to get out of your mind and
Mhm.
be present and really engage with people. It really is a fantastic mechanism for that. I could not agree more.
Yeah, and I think that when you say it like that, it really helps me understand how important it is to separate the noise from the signal. When you're in the act of creation and you are creating something, you're just on this level where it's training you to understand that all that you have is this moment and the past falls away. Like there's something to be said about being able to receive and not be fooled by the distractions.
I love the way you put that. That the noise is not the signal.
Yeah.
That is brilliant because honestly, that's a conversation I've been having with my internal self,
Yeah.
the universal me,
Yeah.
even in the last few days. Like, how do I know what, the synchronicities and things that
Mhm.
I'm seeing? How do I know what are the things that old Haleigh has created and put out
Mhm.
into the universe that are being mirrored back to me? And how do I discern that from the new things I'm trying to create that I want to have mirrored back to me, right?
Yeah.
And separating that out and learning how to filter the old paradigm, right?
Mhm.
Like shifting those old perspectives. Okay, what are these new perspectives now? What's this new lens through which I can frame the
Mhm.
story of my life that I am writing currently in the now moment as I go, right? And that
Yeah.
is it's being in the energy of creation in a way that you can't do when you are stuck in the loops in your head that are from the old paradigms.
Yeah. How are you doing that? Like, is it the term choice architecture comes to mind. I'm curious how, because I think that is it's a very
That's a
important part.
That's another terminology that is new to me, though, choice architecture. No, talk to
Okay.
me about this. Tell me,
Okay.
say more.
Okay. I just talked to a gentleman, forgot his last name. I'll put you in contact with him. He's
Yes.
brilliant. This guy, Nicky. And he
Okay.
was telling me about the idea of choice architecture and the ability to be creative and manifest the things in your life that you want.
Mhm.
And choice architecture is exactly what you said. It's this ability to fundamentally change the old patterns of you, which were old choices of you. So you think of
Mhm.
yourself as an architect and you look at yourself from like a third person point of view and you see the building that you built that is yourself in the past. And you look at it like a blueprint and be like, okay, I put the foundation stone in the wrong spot. I'm going to put it over here now. And now I'm going to build on top of that. And every time I find myself maybe putting the wrong amount of mud on, I'm gonna stop and say, "That's the old George. I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna put this new mud on it and then stack it over here." And by that, I mean, if I find myself doing something like, being super negative about myself or projecting on someone else, which I do sometimes. "Oh, so" an example would be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, so what you're saying is I'm a piece of garbage." And the person's like, "No, I'm not saying that." But that's just me
Mhm.
projecting on them. 'Em. I'll say, "You know what? That's the old George. I don't do that anymore." So what you're trying to say is I could be better if I did in this other perspective. boom, and now you have choice architecture. You've gone out of your way to fundamentally interrupt that old pattern and create a new one on top of it. And that helps you build not only a more solid structure, but a structure that invites other people to it and thus helps you surround yourself with the people you need to get where you want to go. That's the act of manifesting, right?
I really, really love the way that you put that, because in my mind, what came up immediately was you're not just laying a new stone and saying that's the old me, right? But now we're starting to lay stones together. We're starting to learn
Yes.
to collaboratively do this.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
starting to learn to build off of one another, right?
Yep.
I'll give you this piece of knowledge,
That's
this or that, and
yes.
put that stone in, and let's build this thing together. It doesn't have to be just me building what's
Yes.
my story. Okay, can we extrapolate this out? What's our story? What are we co-creating? What kind of, I love that visual. That is so great.
Yeah, maybe I love the way you said it. Maybe what's happening is when we talk about choice architecture, we realize that, maybe we're a den of artists coming together to explore techniques so that we can build our stuff together. Or think about us. It's just this group of, this may sound crazy, but like this den of super people or artistic individuals or slightly crazy knuckleheads getting
Yeah,
together to
yeah.
figure out ways in order to build the world that they want to live in. Like, that sounds to me like beautiful.
I love it. I think it's happening in real
Me
time right
too.
now that we're
Yeah.
figuring out that, this blueprint that I know I had of myself. Well, I'm starting to recognize the oneness of all the things and the
Yeah.
reasons that I'm connecting with these people. And
Yeah.
maybe we came here as a soul family to create a new blueprint for the new world that is available to those who are looking for it. Right? Because not everyone is having these conversations, but certainly more than ever are, and
Yeah.
certainly more people than ever are looking for these conversations. And if you can get these creative people together,
Yeah.
like, it's honestly like there's this synergy that seems to just be happening, and I keep saying it, that it's like there's a bubble that's about to burst and just cover everyone in magical glitter, and I'm so excited for it. I don't know
Look.
what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be beautiful and magical, and I can't wait to see it. I
Yeah.
really do, a lot of it is, and I think that you're right about this, stopping yourself in the middle of old paradigm choices
Mhm.
and trying to it's kind of something that I actually have been doing, where
Yeah.
where I catch myself in certain, because I know when I'm doing it. I've gotten to
Yep.
a level of awareness where it's like you
Yes.
recognize the old loops,
Yep.
right? You recognize the narratives that start coming in from, okay, no, that's not who I'm trying to be anymore.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
think what I would say to anybody listening is just pat yourself on the back for the fact that you recognize it. Like, if
Yes.
you're to a space where you are aware of it, don't kick yourself for not, if you don't redirect immediately, or if you don't, shift into the new gears immediately. Like, just recognize that you had enough awareness to catch yourself in the loop and say, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to choose anymore. Because that is such a big, important space to be in, right? Just the recognition of, no, I don't want to be blaming others. No, I don't want to, like, and that's kind of where I am right now, is I'm
Yeah.
actually in that space of, I don't look at anything as being anybody's fault. I always look at myself.
Mm.
And I say, like, I recognize my external world as a mirror of my internal world. I
Yes.
recognize that whatever that thing was I didn't like is showing me something about me that I need to figure out. And so
Yeah.
that's where I am, is in that space of, okay, the last mountain you got to climb is you,
Yeah.
right? It really is. And
Yeah.
and so how do you go about doing that then, when it comes to what are the new narratives that George is telling himself so that he can move forward in the direction that he wants to be?
That's a great question. I think that the new narratives are, if you want to change the world, then you have to change yourself. And the way you do that is becoming the best version of yourself. And that means getting really honest with yourself, and trusting your relationships. And
Ooh, now
it's
listen,
tough.
that trust element,
Yeah.
that's the sticking point for me. Do
How
I
come?
trust? I don't know yet. I'm trying to figure it out, because
Right.
it really is. It's just, I think it is the narrative
Mm.
situation, right? That once you peel away blaming everyone else, okay, well, then it's all me.
Hmm.
Well, if it's all me and I haven't built what I want up to this point, how am I supposed to trust myself to be able to do it if I haven't seen it yet?
Yeah.
right? How do I
Yeah.
trust me if I haven't shown me yet that I can trust me, right? And that is where, man, that's where that blind faith element has to come in sometimes just a little bit, right?
Right.
And that's when that Two of Swords tarot card comes out for you and says, you need to just trust that you're doing it right and you know more about what you're doing than you think you do. It's some of it is just old paradigm human conditioning, right? That we think that we have to have these step-by-step structures. We think you need to set goals and have, that you need to understand the mechanics of the how to get there. And that's so completely reverse of what the universe actually does, right? Or how
Yeah.
things actually work. It's like, no, no, no. Hold the vision of where you want to be, let the pieces fall into place. But you have to have a lot of faith and a lot of trust to just let those pieces fall, right? And to
Yeah.
hold on to that vision and not get caught up in the what I see now and thinking that what you see now is somehow, you know, insurmountable in some way. Well, it's not. Everything's temporary. Change is the only constant. Like
Yeah.
you can't ever just be where you are forever.
Mhm.
That's just not that's not how anything works.
That's true. I found like a little nugget on the idea of trust that I was able to kind of polish up and see as a diamond. And it's
Mhm.
this idea that, you know, you have to stop, you have to let go of the person you want to be so that you can become the person that you're supposed to be. And I think for me, what I say about trust is that exactly what you said, like, well, look where I am now. If I trust myself, I'm only going to be to this point. But then if you just step back for a minute and you think about what's wrong with this point, and you go, you come up with these ideas. Well, I don't have enough money. I don't have this thing. But
Mhm.
if you just sit with that for a minute, you'd be like, I got like the most tremendous family in the world. I got a wife that loves me. I got a daughter that's crushing it. I'm doing this thing that I love. Why, why don't I trust me? I'm actually living the life that I want to. I'm living the life that I want to live right now. And then all of a sudden, like you get goosebumps, and then like
Mhm.
that idea that like trust is like, man, I'm like Dorothy's red slippers. I had it the whole time. I just didn't
You've
see
always had the ability to
it.
go home, Dorothy.
You've always had it, and,
Oh,
like, that
I love that.
alleviates it, You're like, "Okay, now I just gotta keep doing what I'm doing." In fact, I'm gonna do what I've been doing 10 times harder now, and this
Yes.
thing that was a lack of trust becomes a catalyst to propel you forward into the person that you're supposed to be. It's like you're finally growing into your own skin. You finally
Ooh.
achieved a level where you understand what you're doing. It's not that you didn't trust yourself, it's not that you didn't know what you're doing, it's just that you weren't yet developed enough to understand the path that you were on. And now you've gotten to this vista, or you've gotten to the mountaintop, the same mountaintop that MLK looked down from. Now you're looking down at it and you're like, okay, that's where I was. That's where I'm going. Let me come off the mountain and get back on the path. So I think that is something people can use as a tool, is like, just think about it for a minute. Why do you have trust issues? Because you're trusting that you should be somewhere else. Like, trust that you're in the right spot right now and try to find out why that is. And that will help propel you down the road, I think.
I love that. That is it's so true, and it's part of, like, the idea of, like, gratitude and appreciation of the
Yes.
now moment and what
Yep.
you already have, right? That, okay, I got myself this far, right?
Mhm.
Like, I've carried myself to this point,
Yeah.
and sometimes one of the things that I think too, especially with, when you're in this creative, like, fun realm, right, is that you are doing it. Give
Mhm.
yourself credit that you are doing it. You are podcasting, you are meeting these people, you
Right?
are creating, you are putting it out there, and and not everyone out there is trying to do it. Not everyone out there even knows that it's something they want to try to do yet,
Right.
right? So, and I think that's something where I do need to find a little more space to give myself a little more credit, and probably a lot of other people, and you probably find this too, where it's like, at least I know that I want this, that I love this, that I enjoy this. And not everyone has that thing or has figured themselves out yet to that degree that they can say, oh, yeah, this thing, this is
Yeah.
what lights me up. This is what
Yep.
gets me excited.
Yeah.
And just to know that I know that about myself, right? It's like you've discerned that much. You've been able to cut out the noise enough to recognize that much.
Yeah.
So if you've gotten that far, of course you're gonna be able to get further than that. You don't just get stuck on the plateau forever, right?
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
love that. I think that's really great, and wow, no, I love that. This is gonna be great when I do edit and re-listen to that. It'll be that little, like, reminder, like, "Polish that little nugget of trust. It's in there. You got it.
Yeah.
Keep rolling."
Yeah. Another one when I first started my podcast too, and I think this doesn't have to be podcast, it could be anything that you do when you're starting something is you build it and you're like, "Okay, it's like building the way I look at it is like I'm building this train. I don't know why I chose train, but I'm building this train
I
from the
love it.
ground up, and I put everything together, and I've watched the videos, and I've gone to the classes, and now I have this train built, and I'm like, "Okay, got it on the tracks. Why is this thing not running? Like, why am I not moving forward?" And I start
Like
shoveling coal into the engine, and I'm like,
mhm.
"It is not going anywhere. I must have had a problem with the engine." So I shovel more fuel in there, and I go and I oil up everything, and I'm like just going crazy because it's not moving at all. And I start throwing more fuel in, and I grease it up more, and I'm banging on the gears, and I'm flooring the gas, and nothing. So I shove more fuel, and then all of a sudden, it lurches forward. It's moving. It's moving.
It's
Oh my god,
going.
it's moving.
Here
It's
we go.
moving. And then I get out and I look and I'm like, I can walk faster than this thing. It's barely moving. What am I doing? It's not working. So I shovel more fuel in. And then all of a sudden, it starts moving a little bit faster. And so then you realize, like, uh-oh, have I been putting too much fuel in here? This thing's about to take off. So like I see it
Oh,
from
I
that. I
do
go,
so very much hope that that is the case because I am right there with you.
I
I'm
know
that
you
one
are.
who keeps getting out of the train going, "Why
I
aren't you
know.
moving faster, damn it? I know that I built
I
you to be
know.
slick and
I
roll on
know.
down the tracks."
I see your train. I see you shoveling fuel in it. You're
And
gonna be on the
I
cover of Inc. magazine, is that true?
I don't know yet, but I did just make the cut to be in the top 20, so fingers crossed, that would be amazing, and I thought it was actually kind of funny because we talked about tattoos when I was on your podcast, and I was just like, "Isn't
Right?
that how fun of a little synchronicity is that?" I love it. But I
You would
do
be the perfect person.
I would have the most fun, I really would. I just would so enjoy it. But I love that visual of trains, and I think you
Yeah,
picked trains because it's been something that it's a synchronicity for me that I've been talking about with other people and how we enjoy train travel because you get to see the scenery as you go by, and there's
yeah,
something so much more relaxing and peaceful about it, and something so much less stressful and go about it, where you're really in it and enjoying the journey and all it has to offer, right? And so I think it's a
yeah.
brilliant visual to use for this that you've built a train and like why aren't we moving faster? Why like let's get this rolling. And
Right.
I do feel that sense of man, I keep shoveling in that
I
fuel,
know.
but oh man, it's about to become a rocket ship, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it now.
Love it.
I I'm getting to the point where, like, I've missed, like, I've some people scheduled that, like, I've missed 3 podcasts and been like, I got this guy in Europe, I'm supposed to be on a call at 10 p.m. last night. I just spaced it. I don't know why. I look at my schedule and I'm like, I got 15 podcasts lined up this week, and I'm trying to move, and I got, like, this stuff at school, and
Holy
I'm like, "Man, like, no wonder I forgot that one."
no, you know what? I am doing exactly the same thing to myself right now where I'm just looking at things and I'm like, you have filled your plate very full.
Yeah.
Like it's 100% true, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
put too much into this train? Did I put too much fuel in here? Like, what's about to happen now? Like, we're not trying to do a Titanic situation and like
Yeah.
blow the side out to hell with the iceberg. You don't need it. I've already put an explosive in here myself, So I feel that. I feel that energy so much, but I think that again, that's why the network, right? That's why the
Yes.
co-creation
Yeah.
because we're all building these trains, but
Right.
we're all building these tracks we got to build the hub where we can all meet up and let
Yeah.
everything like hook up
Yes.
together. It's like, yes, you have this train. All right, you got to get the passengers. Who's on board here with me?
Right.
Right? Like that's part of it. You
It
don't
is
want to
part of it.
rocket ship out of the station if you don't have all your team on board, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So maybe that's it, right? Maybe that's where the pause is. It's like you're just getting the band back together because we're on a mission from God, Elwood. That's what it is. I'm
It's true.
100% John Belushi and the Blues Brothers, by the way. That is me 100,000%.
It's such a classic movie. It's such an American style comedy with just it's a beautiful movie.
It is, I'm such a big fan of Belushi, and just all
Animal
that old
House, that was my favorite
Animal
one,
House.
right?
I just recently rewatched that. Honestly, I did, and you should have seen me in my living room dancing around, losing my mind during the toga party when they're singing "Shout" because it's just the most
Yeah.
joyful. I love it so much. It's and John Belushi in that scene, just so again that in the moment energy of really enjoying everything. Like get all the flavor and juice out of the fruit of this life you possibly can. Right?
Yeah.
I
On
love
some level, I think that that level of creativity is been lacking in the world of media for a long time, and I think podcasting and just content creators in general are bringing that back. Like, there's such a variety of things that you can imagine and watch and be part of, and I think that that's part of the explosion, that's part of the trains coming together, that's part of this new wave of media that's going to just run over the old media.
I agree with you 100%. No, I really do, and it's something I love to see because it's a conversation I think we probably all have on a
Yeah,
regular basis. Why do we keep doing all these reboots of movies? Why do we keep doing we're just rerunning all the
yeah,
same narratives and stories and characters and there are so many people who are ready to inject something new, something different, something unique, and something more resonant with where humanity as a consciousness collective is now. Right? Because a lot of the highly commercialized things that we're supposed to be in love with, right?
yeah,
Those things just they're not working for people anymore, right? That they're not giving people the things that they're looking for. And it is such a brilliant thing that we have the internet and all these platforms of, podcasts, content creators, people who are doing small films, short films on YouTube and their own
yep,
series on YouTube. The possibilities of what we can build together collaboratively now that they're the old gatekeepers of, like, for example, Hollywood is one that I talk
yeah,
about all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's not just the people with the money who get to say what gets produced and what gets made and what gets put out there anymore. There are people who are making just because they have a low budget doesn't mean it's not brilliant work that they're doing.
yep,
And now how do you get that work out there if you don't have the gatekeepers? Well, you have people like us who are podcasting who want
that's
to
right.
talk about your stuff and get you to audiences because you are doing great work and it does
Yep,
deserve attention and there are people who are looking for it. And I
yep,
think that's a part of what's so great about again this interconnected network that we keep putting together, it's that it doesn't have to be a world of competition anymore. We can be
yes,
a world of collaboration. There's enough room for all of us. There's enough space for everyone to win and everyone to be successful and everyone to be happy.
yep,
And that is what we're building is the space where that gets to grow. So, to some degree, we're just being really good universal gardeners and we're just, creating the fertile soil in which new wonderful things can grow.
it's beautiful. I love every part of it, and I look at it as a tapestry, like, we're each this thread in a incredible tapestry that's being built, and it's never been easier, like, I wanna like, you had mentioned a lot about not a lot, but you had mentioned briefly about Hollywood and the
Mhm.
gatekeepers and these old movies that they just rerun. Anybody listening to this, like, when is the last time, like, you really saw an original or good movie, like, or a
Mhm.
TV show or something along the line or a song even, like, think about, like, what the guardians of Hollywood and the gatekeepers have done. They have decided that they will be the arbiters of what is talent, and when they do that,
Mhm.
whenever a handful of people decide what's good, they suck at it. Because there's so many talented people out there that are willing to rise up and not given the chance because certain people wanna have their family members do it or their kid do it, like,
Mhm.
it's never been easier for just think about the garbage that's out there. Everybody can do better than that garbage. Like, if you had
Right?
imagine you get a budget of, like, $1,000,000, 500, 100,000, I could crush it with 100. Like, these people have 10, 20, $100,000,000. If you can't make a hit with $100,000,000,
You give
r
me $100,000,000, I tell you right now, I got 100,000,000 movies we can make,
yeah.
and I got half of them outlined in scripts and Google Docs right now.
Right?
Like, I'm on it. But that is, again, the great thing about this podcasting and this collaborative connecting is, like, I'm sitting here and I'm saying and putting out there, "Listen, I'm a writer. I got stories. I got all this stuff that I could
Yeah.
absolutely, like, really excited about, new and different." Who knows when I'm gonna meet somebody who is a producer, an actor, whoever. Like,
Right.
when you follow these little threads, like, then you start connecting up with the other threads that can help you build, right? You connect up with that choice architecture that you're talking about, like that it's you can bring in new people who have new techniques and you can bring in the people who help you build it. Like, again, it's that idea of you don't have to build you all by yourself anymore, right? Like,
Yeah.
we can help build each other and
Yes.
and give each other space to be your authentic you and be the best that you are at the thing you do, and let's work together because I'm great at this and you're great at this. Like, let's again, synergize, right?
Yeah.
Like, blending it all together to build something really beautiful and really integrate it, and it's such an exciting thing about where we are now that there's so much more opportunity to connect with all the different people that can create all the new things that so many people really are hungry for, something new, something different, something more resonant than all the like you're saying, the old
Yeah.
Hollywood stories that to a pretty incredible degree do really dictate what we kind of expect out of real life and real life
Yes.
relationships and what they should look like, even
Yeah.
though we're all looking for something new and different and more. I think we're all looking for something more uplifting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't it interesting how the true talent grows out of the places where you may not ever got to see it if you were just a select group of people. Like, you know, I'm amazed by all the work you do. Like, you're a science fiction writer. You have like 5 podcasts. You write movies, you write books, you have these different genres. Like, you're an incredibly talented individual with an imagination that should be crafting narratives that everybody gets to see. And what better way than the ground up? Like, it would
Mhm.
be so much worse if you had all the talent you had, but you were born into a family where you were given the ability to write a script. It's so much better that you have to struggle and fight to get there because that makes your stories not only better to read, but they're coming from a place of authenticity. There's things you
Mhm.
can't fake, and authenticity is one of them. The fact that you have to struggle to get a script in front of somebody, like, that is a story inside itself. The fact that, "You know what? I'm gonna
Mhm.
write this for science and podcast and
Yeah,
this," like,
and I'm gonna do
right?
art, and because I can't
And
sit still
all of it.
because I don't I have too many interests. But it's true that, if I had been born into a situation where I could just do it, it wouldn't have been as flavorful,
You might not
right?
even tapped into
Like,
the true potential that you have.
that is very true because when you're born into it, you're kind of there's a certain amount probably of conditioning and expectation of we'll just do it the way it's always been done, and
Yeah.
that's a little bit like we can't make money on that. Like, there's a
Yeah.
different paradigm and a way of looking at things
Yeah.
where the new and really creative, weird, unique ideas would be like repackaged in a way that like, well, this is how we package it in Hollywood. This is how you
Mhm.
right? And it really does take the uniqueness away from it because it all does have to like center around being commercialized, being profitable, being like something that well, you got to get as many people as possible and the biggest audience as possible. So you have to make this as generic as possible to be,
Yep.
something that's for everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas what I'm doing now, it's absolutely not for everyone. I am a very particular flavor, and you are gonna have but sometimes it's an acquired taste, so strap in and give it a try.
Yeah.
But that's very true, and I think that is a really good perspective for me to have that, it is valuable, but it's like you said before, right? Until you're in a space where you recognize that some of that contrast that you've lived up till now seems like
Mhm.
so you get that "why me" kind of
Yes.
mentality, but then there is a point at which you're able to look back and say, "Oh, I get it. I had to
Mhm.
learn that. The dominoes had to fall that way. I did choose this for myself
Yeah.
because the authentic me that I really am could not have built itself so well or would not be able to shine in this way if I
Yeah.
hadn't experienced those other things that gave me the perspective I have now."
Yeah. Those
Like
tragedies are a big dose of empathy for you later in life, like, "Oh, I know what they're going through." You know, like,
that
that's
I mean, the ability that I have, I think, to put myself in someone else's shoes, even just from like the idea of being a writer and really
Yeah.
embodying your characters, right?
Yeah.
It gives you that ability to sort of step outside of your own narrative and your own bubble and say, okay, let me imagine this other person's universe. Because inside of my head, the story looks a certain way from whatever
Mhm.
interaction I've had with this person. But if I were outside of it, and I were the writer and the author, Okay, put yourself into this other character then.
Yeah.
Why did this character behave the way that they did? Like,
Yeah.
what is the story here and what is the narrative? And I think when you can sort of like pull yourself out of it and kind of be the omniscient author of your own life in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
You get that better perspective. It's like you say, you could get to the top of the mountain for a moment and kind of go, okay, yeah, I see where I'm heading. And oh, yeah, that path was the right one to take. It was the best one to take. Okay, here's the next step. All right, I'm going to get back down off the mountain and get back on the trail. And I might not be able to I don't have the same higher level perspective that I did up on that mountain, but I still know where that vision is. Keep going.
So this brings up an interesting question, and I've been seeing this a few places around, and it
Okay.
seems to me, and you as an author probably have a unique perspective on this. You know, in the world that I was born up in, that I grew up in the schools that I went to, the way language is structured is like subject and object. And if you think about this is the subject and this is the object, well, that puts you in this narrow mindset where either you're the subject or you're the object.
You're
There's a
either the
subject,
you're either
yeah,
the protagonist or the victim.
yes.
That
But
is
the way you just
yes.
explained it is like, what if I'm the author? What if I'm the author? What if I'm
Right.
the protagonist? And what if I'm the antagonist at the same time?
What
Like,
if I created that villain?
yes,
Because how could I be the hero
yes,
in my own story
yeah,
if I didn't have the villain? That's
right,
something that I think I put on Twitter or whatever at some
yeah,
point. Like, of course we all want to be the heroes of our own
you're
story
right,
because having enemies is super fun.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you're a hero with no arch nemesis, what good is that?
right, right. Where is the fuel? Where is the anticipation? Where is the exhilaration? It's
Yes.
and And the villain can be the world. The villain can be the villain can be whatever you want it to be. Maybe you like, but just having that perspective shift
Yep.
allows your story to mature in a way. Because how cool is it as a writer to take a reader on a journey and then throw them for a loop over? You're like, I didn't see
Uh-huh.
that coming, right?
It's so much fun. And you know what? So I think that's a helpful thing when you're in the midst of the contrast, when you're in the
Mhm.
midst of the difficult thing, to kind of to give yourself the grace of, well, I did write this story and it
Yeah.
wouldn't be interesting if I didn't have this element. So there
Mhm.
must be some reason that I have this
Mhm.
element. There's a triumph, like it's something that I've actually been telling myself lately because I think that I have because we have that sort of separation of,
Yeah.
because it's part of this human game, right? I
Yeah.
feel separated from the higher
Of
self
course.
who is me. I talk about my higher self like it's separate of me and has all these ideas that I don't have about what I want or where I want to go. And it's like, no, 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 that is you. You do want to go those places, and your inner being wants you to go those places. And that's something I have been telling myself. Like, I got a miracle in me somewhere, like I do. It's
Yeah.
in there somewhere, but you gotta
Yeah.
peel those layers back, right? You gotta get rid of some of those old perspectives and paradigms. And that's where the value of these conversations is in a lot of ways, is that it helps you to recognize, oh, there's the way that I was looking at this in the wrong way. Now, if I shift myself, I see the authentic me just a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a very self-portraiture sort of like progression if you think of it in terms of like art, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's this self-portrait of me and here's how it progresses of this is how I see me now and here's how it is. It's an interesting sort of iterative process in and of itself, right? This
Yeah.
rising up on the stepping stones of our dead selves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I heard someone use the term shedding yesterday. I was speaking with this young lady who used to be a dentist and a dancer, and then she turned into an entrepreneurial coach. And
Love it.
she talked about I'm sorry, what'd you say?
No, I
Oh,
love it when
oh,
I hear people who have like started in these
yeah,
one places and then
yeah.
hard left turn.
Yeah, she started off as like a dentist for people that were afraid to go to the dentist. And
I used to be that person. How funny.
I know, me too.
And
It's a great point of entry, right? I'm like, "Oh, I
yeah.
love it. Like, this person's awesome already. Like, it's a great
Yeah.
pitch."
Like who I totally get it that like I've been afraid to go to the dentist
Yeah.
100%.
And she developed this sort of arthritis or something along those lines where her hand would get, like, really gnarly and, like, kinda claw up. And, like, so
Okay.
she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a dentist, and my hand is, like, getting this thing, and I'm not gonna be able to work." And so
Mhm.
for a year, she tried to fight it with, like, acupuncture, and then one day, she was giving someone, like, a root canal, and it just clammed up, and, like, she couldn't finish, and
Oh,
because of that, like, she lost her business, she couldn't do it anymore,
yeah.
she just lost everything, and part of her mind too. However, she found a way in which to reinvent herself. And in our conversation, we were talking about, like, do you think maybe your condition that caused your hand to clench up like that and destroy your business was a sign from the planet that you weren't doing what you're supposed to do?
Yes. That's 100% no, like, it's so amazing that you bring this up
Right?
because I just had exactly this conversation with Jeff Wooliner about
Ah,
his
he's
book,
such a
The
great
Path
guy.
to Perfectia. Yeah, but exactly that conversation of, like, the universe, like, your body stops functioning in some way, shape, or
Yeah,
form, like, finds a way to say, it's not that you're not doing good work with what you're doing, but you
right,
came to do something else,
right.
right? And it's not that what you're doing isn't valid or a valid perspective, but you came to do something else. And man, the trick here is, and that's the billion-dollar question, if you
Yeah.
will, how do I follow and trust the me that I'm supposed to be without requiring that hitting of that kind of a wall, right?
Mm,
How do you really tune in, tap in, turn on to the point that you are able to see the next step, trust the next step without the universe having to full on stop you in some way like that? Because obviously, I say again, the universe. It's obviously
yeah,
something that, like,
yep,
we chose a certain kind of, I don't know. There's something in you that knows that there's an authentic you that is somehow not coming out and really shining, and so it gives you an opportunity in a what seems like a difficult way to get you to look in a different direction. But that's kind of
yeah,
another space I find myself right
yeah.
now where I think, how do I look in a different direction without the universe having to smack me? You know, like, how do I get the wake up call from me without having me have to come up and give me some kind of tower card moment, right? To
Yeah.
make another tarot reference. Like, how do I not have to watch my world crumble before I jump into the role that I need to be in next? Right?
I think you have like, I call it the padded 2 by 4. Like, I think that you get smacked with a padded 2 by 4,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you figure it out, like, so you have to get hit by that 'cause maybe some people don't, but everybody I know has, like, that's how
Mhm.
you hear it, like, you some people are probably naturally gifted and hear the voice or hear their heart or hear the song or can follow the wind or whatever metaphor they wanna use. Some people,
Mhm.
maybe they're attuned to it. I wasn't, like, I had to get slapped with this thing a few times before I went, "Oh, I shouldn't do that." And it's like a wake-up call, like, that idea of a wake-up call is a
Mhm.
real thing. But then after you get hit a few times, it's like, "Okay, the world is telling me through this embodiment of misplaced anger and
Mhm.
being a horrible person or feeling horrible, that's the wrong path. So maybe I should try this other thing that makes me feel good." And like that's exactly what we were talking about in the
Yeah.
beginning. Like, okay, I can't do that anymore. Like I physically couldn't do it. Like I tried with everything I had. Like this is what I want. Yeah. The
Yeah.
word said, no, you don't, you dummy. You
No.
want this. Get
Go
over
that
here.
way.
Yeah. And it'll grab you and pull you in direction and push you until you're
Yeah.
on the right path. And then if you start swaying from the path, it'll slap you. Ah, over here, over here.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
yeah.
feel it. And I think it's a real feeling. Like you feel a pull towards doing it. Like I feel pull to podcast as much as I can to make connections. And then on top of that, I'm like, okay, I need to start painting my house. I gotta sell this place. I need to start work on that now. And it's like this pull turns into a motivation, which turns into the next step on the path. And then you look
Mhm.
back and like, oh, I see. Okay, I got it. And it just becomes clearer. The vision becomes clearer. The dream becomes translated into reality. Like that's what you're doing. It's the pull from in here to out here. Like anytime you tell a story or anytime you have a thought, thoughts are things, right? And you can
Yes.
it's the transmutation of alchemy. It's alchemy. You're translating vision into reality. And it starts with a smack to the head from the universe.
It it does, and sometimes you just kinda wish, like, "Man, how do I need to be in a listening space so that I
Yeah.
can let the universe give me these messages and follow them without them having to hit me so hard?" I'd agree with that 100%, but I it I do love that visual, and sometimes all the words fall out of my head is what
Yeah,
happens, and I
yeah,
kinda love that when that happens because it's so unusual for me as a writer. But I think that and you had said that before, we were talking about language, that sometimes you need to start creating a bit of new context for yourself in your
yeah,
self-talk. Because you're talking, how we talked about like the way that our language is built, that subject object
yes,
kind of thing, right? And in a lot of ways in that language is very limiting
yeah,
because you attach so much emotional meaning to certain things to the
mhm,
point that like think about things like affirmations, right?
yeah,
That sort of resentful energy that you can have towards certain words or certain concepts, and you put it in an affirmation that's supposed to help you manifest something, and
yeah,
it twists around what you're trying to do, or manipulates your vision a little bit, right?
yes,
Because you think, but I understand this thing this way, I define this thing this certain way, and so it doesn't make sense, and it trying to peel away again more of those layers of don't get so caught up in the semantics. Don't get so and as a writer and as
mm,
an author, it's a little bit difficult because my mind likes to work in complete sentences, so to
sure,
say, right? We
yeah,
want to have like the linear continuity, but your authentic self does not require that linear continuity, does not require things to be structured in certain sort of ways. Like there's a
yes,
fluidity. Right? That's how you get into that flow. And you have to release a lot of the old definitions that you have for a lot of things. And you know, being in a space again where where I'm actively practicing let it see again. Instead of saying trying, I'm trying to say practicing now
yeah,
because
yeah,
trying has an element of try fail.
yeah,
Practicing means I am actively doing it, which means I
yes,
can't help but get better at it
yep,
because I am doing the thing. But
yes,
even just that little shift in perspective or language or how I talk to myself, right?
yeah,
Those little things are the really important things that help you to continue to get where you're going. And like you said, like you keep shoveling in that fuel and you keep adding on the I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. But it's the motivator that forces you to prioritize what is really important and what can fall to the wayside because it no longer serves you. Right? Because when you pile on your plate so high and you can't handle it because your eyes were too big for your stomach, right? All right, well, do I want to eat the things that I think I should eat because it's healthy, this or that? Or do I want to just push off the things off my plate that are distasteful to me and go with the things that taste good, that feel good, that make me happy and give me joy? And I think to some degree, as the writers of our own story, we put ourselves in a corner because we know that's the only place where we'll start finally letting go of those things. If I shove myself into that corner, if I back myself against a wall, okay, I needed to build myself a window. All
yeah,
right, I'll build myself the window now. I get it. I needed an escape route, and I had to put myself in a place where I had to build the escape route and let go of that old me so that
yeah,
I could move on to something new.
yeah, that's well said. It it
We've
makes
all
me
No, go ahead.
it makes me think, like, the linear idea of languages and, like, the inefficiency of language to really convey meaning. I've been reading a lot about the idea of signs versus symbols, and a sign is like a stoplight. Really, the color red or the color green or yellow, like, we know that means stop or go or be cautious, but it's just a sign. Like a
Mhm.
symbol, like the yin and the yang symbol. Like, symbols point towards the action and they participate in it. Like, a sign just tells you something, but a symbol participates in the very thing that it's showing you. So, like the yin and the yang, here is a
Mhm.
symbol of balance where there's a spot of chaos or a spot of light, a piece of light and darkness, and a piece of dark and lightness, and it's constantly moving around and around and around. Like, that is something that points towards an action of balance and light and chaos and darkness and the connection to them. Like, that's a symbol. There's a real meaning in there. A
Mhm.
sign is like, "Okay, here's a light that I know I should stop at." So
A
it's
sign being something that you were trained to recognize means this certain thing, whereas
yes.
a symbol holds something that is a deeper resonant meaning that comes from a place where you don't need to articulate that message, you understand it in an energetic way. And that
Thank you.
really and it's such a I really do love that visual and that imagery because I think that that is really important, and that's a part of where I think we are as a collective consciousness
Yep.
humanity, learning how to, like you say, have a message that has meaning to it and
Yes.
not just the structure that is expected,
Yes.
required, the
Right.
correct formatting of a document. It's like, that
Yeah.
it bringing it don't that's something that I do try to tell myself even when I'm listening to other people, right? It comes to that empathy thing, like, hear the message more than you hear the words,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
get the meaning, get the intention,
Right.
right? Not necessarily what might generally be extrapolated from it based on what we've been taught to expect or how we've been taught to read it, right?
Right.
And somewhere between the lines there should be an energetic message that we're looking for, and symbols have a way of abstractly getting us there more than language does sometimes.
If I write my wife or my daughter a Valentine that says, "I love you," do they care if I misspelled O with a U? You know what I mean?
Right. No,
It
exactly.
doesn't matter.
Like,
It doesn't
don't
matter.
nitpick over the little things, and that,
Yeah.
100%, it's not about, like, think about, like, a little kid who gives you a
Yeah.
Valentine or
It's even
writes something.
specialer, right? It's even
It's
better.
right, it's even better when they misspell it
You're right.
or when they have a letter backwards or something like that.
Right.
It's not the correctness about it that matters, it's that they gave you something from the heart because they really wanted you to have it, because they
Yeah.
created and they were thinking about you while they created this thing. And isn't that so much more important and so much more valuable than whether or not it was done in the correct way,
Yeah.
quote
And if
unquote "correct."
Yeah, and look at, like, there's a lot of cool logos that have, like, instead of an E, they have a backwards 3, or if
Yeah.
you start looking at the creative way in which people begin to spell words, I think that's happening more and more and more, and I think what's happening is that we're beginning to understand that it's not the word, it's the meaning behind the word. It's exactly like you said, it's the meaning, and I see
Mhm.
that as a sign of progression,
Yes.
as a living language, as evolution of language, like, we're
Mhm.
finally getting to put some meaning behind it.
No, I do, I agree with that, and I love that, you see things like that where logos incorporate not just, like,
Yeah.
the letters and numbers, but, like, imagery where you might
Yeah.
replace a letter with, like, an
Yeah.
image or something like that,
Yeah.
and I do, I think that that sort of more abstract form of communication, it's more useful, and it is a new evolution. I agree with that 100% because if you start breaking down the need for rules and structure when it comes to communication, you can communicate more openly with more people when you
Mhm.
open yourself to receiving the energy of a message and not just at face value what it says based on, again, your human mind's training about language or culture or expectations from society, right?
Yeah.
That creative element brings in something new that transcends language in a lot of ways so that we can communicate on a deeper, more profound level. And I think that's something that helps us again. It's part of it's part of this whole collective that's coming
Yes.
together and creating
Yeah.
these things is that you have to be kind of like the lighthouse that shines a light on all of these wonderful things that people can look at and start to learn new and different ways of thinking about things internally first, right? And
Yeah.
then extrapolating that out to communication with others and being able to communicate with others in a more meaningful way, right? And I think again with this podcasting stuff that we're doing to bring it back
Yeah.
around to the top, that is part of what we're doing. You're breaking down the barriers of expectations of language and the way that we frame and view things traditionally and getting to the heart of things, getting to the connectedness of all of us and recognizing that we all have something really valuable to offer in this ecosystem of humanity, and
Yeah.
everyone has a role to play, and if we all allow ourselves to be our authentic selves, that's when we can all really thrive together.
I love it. Like, it's really well said, and I can't help but think that It's fractal in a way, like the same way we're just
Mhm.
talking about language, in the same way, like that's what that is what's happening in society. Like half of society is still trapped in the linear idea of
Mhm.
language in a box, and they're trapped in this thing, and we were too. And but
Mhm.
now, once you get to this point where, and now you're back at trust. I trust that I can operate outside of the box. Okay, let me see.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm a podcaster. No, you're not. I'm a podcaster. No, you're not. I'm a podcaster. Yes, I am.
Mhm.
It's just like that.
Yes.
That's all you got to do.
Yes.
Just switch it. Yes, you are.
Yes, I am. And because who gets to say
Believe
whether
it.
you are or not? You're the only one who really does.
You say the truth. You say what's
Right.
true for you, not the
Yes.
external validation. And like that, it's such a
Yes.
minor thing, but it's a huge shift. Like once you realize you don't need the external validation, that you have the validation and you have the authority and authenticity to be what you want. I might not be a good podcaster, but doesn't mean I'm not a podcaster. I might be the greatest podcaster ever. Whatever I decide, that's what I
Yeah.
am. And people have that. It's been hidden away from them, locked in a little heart-shaped box down here. But you have the
Yes.
key. I think it's 𝓕𝓻𝓪𝓷𝓴𝓲'𝓼 that says the whole world is open to you. I'm butchering the quote, but it's something along the lines of the whole world is open to you, but only you have the door, only you have the key to open the door, and it resides within you. Like you have abundance right now. You have
Mhm.
everything. You could quit your job and go live the life you've always wanted to live if you have the courage to do it. That's all. That's it.
But
It's
that's
right there.
exactly it, isn't it? Because that's the leap of faith that you need to take.
Yes. Yeah.
That authentic you that is you has a way to support you in what you wanna do, because why would you wanna do the things you wanted to do if you didn't have a way to do it?
Yeah.
It's
And
100% true.
it's so true, and it's scary and it's rewarding, but that's life, like, that's the beauty of life. There's
Yes.
not peaks without valleys. There's no music without silence. Like, the silence in between the notes is the most beautiful part of music. It's there.
You as a surfer, there's no waves to ride if you don't have any up and down, right?
That's
Like,
right.
and
That's
where's the
right.
fun in that? That's 100% true. I love it so much. I do wanna be respectful of your time, friend. I feel like we could talk for absolutely hours, and I'm sure that we absolutely could. So you must come back again another
Of
time. I
course.
I I can't wait to have another beautiful, wonderful, transformative conversation with you. But for the audience, if they do wanna find more, please tell them where to find you. I will put your links in the description below, obviously, but go ahead, tell folks where to go out and look for all your stuff.
Yeah, just Google True Life Podcast and I'll come up. I'm on all the platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, all the podcasting ones. Come check me out. I'm on LinkedIn. True Life Podcast. I'm super stoked that it's hit the top 5% of all podcasts on Listen Notes. Got over 600 episodes. I'm talking to cool people like Haleigh over here. I would love to have you come and check out some of my content. So just Google True Life Podcast and click the link.
Or click the link below in the
Yeah,
description and go join us on this wonderful ride that we are on. Build a train of your own and let's find a hub together.
yeah, I love it. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me, George. This has been really wonderful. Thank you. Hi again, friend. Frankie here. Thanks for joining us today to get the 411. You can get more details on today's guests by checking out the links in the description. And if you'd like to support more episodes of the Frankie 411 podcast, you can become a patron at patreon.com/FrankieWasHere and find all of my other social media links down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a review, do all those things that you wonderful listeners can do. Until next time, much love to you, my earthbound and cosmic friends. Wherever you are out there, I hope you're doing well.